Okay, we are back in Luke 20. We're going to pick it up in just a moment in verse 19 today. But before that, let's get right into it. The chief priests and begin to seek to lay hands on Christ at this very hour, um, because they perceived that he told the parable against them. So let's remember what that parable was. If you recall, it was a parable about a vineyard. And if you remember how that went, a man plants a vineyard and then he goes into another country for a while. And what does he do after he plants the vineyard and before he leaves, if you remember?
He sublets basically the vineyard to other people to run it, and then eventually sends his servants to take his share.
Yes. So he sublets the tenants, and then after a while, he sends his servants to come and get the fruit. It's his vineyard. It's not theirs. It's his vineyard. Um, and so when he comes to get his fruit, what do they do with when the servants arrive? And that was in verse 10 and
They,
11, 12.
they sent them away, sent them away.
They send them away empty-handed, but they do even more than that.
They
They,
treat them
they,
bad. They
they,
sometimes beat them.
Yep. They wound them, they beat them, they cast them out, and send them away. They just totally mistreat them. And then the owner of the vineyard has one last card to play in order to get the fruit. What does he do?
Sends a son.
He
uh,
sends his son. His thinking is they'll respect my son. But what's the thinking of the tenants when they see the son coming?
If they kill the son, they'll inherit his share.
Yeah, they think that if they get rid of the son, then they get to keep the vineyard for themselves. It'll be their inheritance if they get rid of the son. And of course, then Jesus concludes with this question: what will the owner of the vineyard do to these tenants after they've not only abused his servants, but now have killed his son? What will he do? And the answer is pretty obvious.
Serve what he considers justice.
Yeah, which is he will destroy them. He
Yeah.
will destroy these tenants and he'll give that vineyard to others. And they hear this and they say, surely not. They're appalled at this because they know what it means. So going back over it, who is the? Let's go very quickly. Who's the man that plants the vineyard?
God.
That's God. That's the Lord, right?
mhm.
Who? What is the vineyard?
Israel.
Israel, God's people, is His vineyard. Who are the tenants?
Jews. The,
Well, more specific to that,
the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the leaders.
the leaders of the Jews, the Jewish leaders, the Jews, in a sense, are the vineyard. Their leaders are the tenants. Who are the servants that are sent to collect the fruit?
The prophets.
Those are the prophets, right? And then, of course, who is the son? Um, that, of course,
Jesus.
is Jesus, right? Who's
Yeah.
standing right
And
before them. Yeah,
and but when he sent uh the tenants, he actually sent them three times. He didn't just send one. He gave them three chances before he sent the son, which was of course Jesus.
yes, that's a good point. He three times is assuring that he is giving them every chance. You know, three strikes and you're out kind of thing. And even then, he goes forward and brings his own son.
Mm.
The day. Who are the others at the end? He's going to destroy those tenants, and he's going to give the vineyard to others. Who are the others?
The
When will he?
Gentiles.
Gentiles.
No,
Um,
no.
More specific. Remember, the tenants are those who are in charge of it, who are caring for the vineyard. He's going to give that
Oh,
vineyard
the
over to
apostles.
the apostles. Yes. And the leaders now, the apostles, the prophets, the elders, the evangelists, the pastors, the teachers of the new covenant now, he's going to give to others. He's going to take it from them. And that those old leaders are going to be destroyed. The priests, the Pharisees. And when did all that take place? That shift when he destroyed them and, in a sense, handed his people over to others? You remember when that happened?
70 AD.
You got it. 70 AD is that destruction of the temple.
Temple.
That last stand at Masada, when I think it was the Pharisees who were huddled up there and committed suicide when the Romans were closing in on them in 73.
Mhm.
We have this absolute destruction of the temple, and all the institutions just come crashing down all of a sudden. And that's a prophecy of what's about to come for them. So let's pick it up there, verse 19 down to 26. Let's read that here. Let's see, Elizabeth, would you read that for us?
Sure. Down at 26. The scribes and the chief priests sought to lay hands on him at that very hour, for they perceived that he had told this parable against them, but they feared the people. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be sincere, that they might catch him in something he said, so as to deliver him up to the authority and jurisdiction of the governor. So they asked him, Teacher, we know that you speak and teach rightly and show no partiality, but truly teach the way of God. Is it lawful for us to give tribute to Caesar or not? But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, Show me a denarius. Whose likeness and inscription does it have? They said, Caesar's. He said to them, Then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they were not able in the presence of the people to catch him in what he said, but marveling at his answer, they became silent.
Okay. All right, so we'll start here. The scribes and Pharisees, and scribes and the chief priests. Remember these two groups, the scribes and the priests. If you remember who they were and how they connected to each other, I don't know if you remember what their relationship was.
Well, let's say the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they really didn't like each other.
Yeah. Yeah, the scribes, the Pharisees are sort of I'll call them sort of the fundamentalist leaders. They were very to the law, to the script, very conservative, very fundamentalist in a sense. And the chief priests, which are like the Sadducees, you're correct, are more like the sort of the liberal elites. And so these are the leading parties. It's kind of like, again, modern context, it's like the Democrats and the Republicans getting together, finding agreement on something. And that something in this case is what do they both agree on, even though they hate each other?
They got to put an end to Jesus.
Yeah. They need to kill Jesus. They need to lay hands on him to kill him. But why don't they just do it? They have the authority. They have the means to do it. We've
They're
seen them do
afraid
it
of the
other places.
people.
Yeah. They don't because they are afraid of the people. All right. So what's their plan then? How are they going to get rid of him without having the people turn on them?
Trap him. Set up a trap where he can't win either way. He either loses with the Romans or he loses with the people.
Yes. Okay. The plan is to set a trap for Jesus so that he loses, so that he either gets in trouble with the Romans, which would be great. Then they can report him, and if the Romans are the bad guys, they can do the killing. Or if he doesn't get in trouble with the Romans, then he will lose support from the people. So it's a divide and conquer from the people. So they try to catch him with a controversial thing. They say that in politics, what do they call that? The third rail. You know, the third rail. You've heard that phrase?
Mhm.
It's the third rail of a subway. If you touch the third rail, you die. right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so in politics, there's a third rail. Usually it was something like Social Security or some hot issue that if you even touch this issue, you're going to die politically. You can't win because the country is so passionate about it and fervent on both sides of it. There's no winning position. And so the best thing is just to avoid it. Don't want to deal with it. Like I think right now and today it would be like the national debt. You don't want to talk about it because once you start talking about it, then they start blasting you as someone who's going to cut, benefits to Social Security, cut this, cut that, and suddenly everyone is up in arms. So you try to avoid it and not to deal with it. All right, so here's an issue. This is sort of a third rail issue for them. They watch him, they send spies, and they pretend to be sincere. Try to
And the
catch him.
spies are like, they just like get shocked, silent.
Yeah, at the end. Yeah, so they kind of sneak in there. So these spies are guys who are part of their camp, but they wouldn't be known to Jesus. They pretend to be sincere followers, people who are genuinely curious about his answer to these questions, who really want to learn something. And they kind of come and pretend to be his students, trying to learn some things, and hoping that he'll say something that will get him in trouble. So here's the trap question. Let's talk about that. And what is the trap question here?
Should we pay taxes to Caesar?
Yeah, should we give tribute or pay taxes to Caesar or not? But notice how they set it up. What do they say before they even ask that question?
They say how good and fair and just he is.
Yeah, you speak and teach rightly and show no partiality. Yeah, right?
Oh, you're so great.
Truly
Which
teach
he
the
is, of
way.
course, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
So they're trying to the way it's kind of flattering someone to give the answer that you want them to give. What is the answer they want him to say? Now, both answers will be fine, but one is better than the other. What's the answer they really want him to say?
I would say offend the Romans first, myself.
Yes.
That could be lethal, more
Yeah.
than just people turning against you.
They're praising him for like you're so courageous. You speak the truth, no matter how much it gets you in trouble. You will speak the truth. You're such, man of justice. And so they're hoping he says, "No, we shouldn't give tribute to Caesar." And the crowd will be so impressed with his courage, and then they can report him, and the Romans will come and arrest him. That's what they're hoping for. But again, if he doesn't take the bait and says, yes, I think we should pay taxes to Caesar, then his most passionate supporters, who are fervent for the Jewish law, are going to abandon him at this point. So I would say definitely they're hoping he says no, just the way that they flatter him. Okay. Wendy, what happened to you over there? You're upside down.
I am?
Okay. You're
Hello.
Sideways.
there you go. All right.
Am
Good.
I
Go.
better?
That's good.
Yes.
He was practicing cartwheels.
So, all right. They're hoping he says no. So Jesus responds. Now notice Jesus immediately. Oh, let me put it back here. Say, hope he says no. So Romans will take him. If he says yes, then he's a coward. He's a coward. He compromises. He's he's a compromiser, and so he's going to lose his fervent supporters at this point. It's a trap question. There is no really good answer. And if he says something like the Pharisees did, like, "Oh, I don't know," that's not a good answer either. Now you're skirting the issue. Now you're a coward. It's just so
He says it beautifully.
It's a great. It's a devilishly genius question because it really is. There just is no. The best thing for him to do is somehow he's got to avoid the discussion because any question is going to get him in any answer is going to get him into trouble. But Jesus' response is always so good here. So what is he? The first thing it says in verse 23. I should say, I didn't even ask the question. Is it right? Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar? What does it mean? Is it lawful? What do they
The
mean by
Jewish
that?
law.
Yeah. Is it lawful?
Mine
According
says permissible.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So in this case, I think the lawful is a better translation of it, because ESV is much more to the word. But according to the law of Moses, they want to know, is it lawful for us to do that, to give tribute to Caesar? And that's a great question. Is it? It's very controversial because how is it law? Is that something consistent with the law to give tribute and honor to a pagan king? Is the question. I'm not sure that the law of Moses really directly addresses that question.
Mm.
You can see where it's very controversial here, especially when you consider Caesar is the one who's been declaring himself to be God, even at these times as well. Jesus' response, first thing you'll notice, it says is, lost our spot here, in verse 23.
He's on to him.
Yes, he perceives their craftiness. And even that phrase, craftiness, where have you seen that used? The first time that word is used, crafty.
Yeah, towards the serpent.
Satan. Isn't it
Yes,
Satan?
exactly right. Like the serpent in the garden. And it's no coincidence that there's certain points where he calls them your father, the devil. They really are using his ways. They're very crafty. And if you remember, the way that the devil tempted and deceived Eve and Adam was in asking a question. Just asking a question here. That's all. That's the beauty of a question, is you can plant ideas, you can plant accusations without being held accountable, because you just look, I'm just asking a question. Just asking a question. Kind of the question is, Bob, when did you stop beating your wife? Great question, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you answer? It's like, I'm just asking a question here. I'm not making an accusation,
I
but I
didn't
just planted
stop.
the idea. I planted the idea in everyone's head now that you're a wife beater by that simple question, without even accusing you of anything here. So it's so wicked, it's so deceitful. And Jesus' response now, you'll notice this is classic technique when he deals with those who are insincere. He almost every time he answers a question with a question, as we saw before. With John's baptism, they said, by what authority do you do these things? Well, I'll ask you a question. What about John's baptism? Was he of God or of man? And he responds to their insincerity. When someone asks him sincerely, he will often give them a sincere answer. But here he's going to ask them a question. So what's his response?
Who's on the denarius?
Yes. Whose likeness? He show me a denarius. Whose likeness is on the denarius? What's the denarius, by the way?
A coin.
Roman
Yeah.
coin.
The Roman coin, about a day's wage. So give me a denarius. Whose likeness and inscription does it have? And they said,
Jesus.
Caesar's. Caesar's likeness is on that coin. All right. So then what does he say?
Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's.
Okay. I want to just dwell upon that answer for a second. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Why is that coin belonging to Caesar?
There's his pictures on it.
Got it. Caesar's likeness is engraved on that coin. Therefore, it's his, in a sense.
Mm.
So, but he doesn't just end with render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. What does he say next?
Render to
And-
God things that are God's.
Render to God the things that are God's. All right, so then the question is, all right, well, what are the things that are God's? And we have to look at the parallel here. If the truth is that if Caesar's likeness is on something, then it belongs to him
Mm.
specifically.
Oh,
Then we have to ask, well, where is God's likeness?
And we're made
The
in God's
sun.
likeness.
Yes. Render to God things that are God's. In this case, God's likeness is on what?
the Son of God.
Well, it's on the Son, but who? What else?
And us.
his
On
Us.
us.
disciples,
We're
yes.
made in his likeness. Yeah.
We are made in the image of God. And so the other, and what does he mean by all that then? What do we render to God?
Ourselves.
Ourselves, right? We belong to God. You know, you're haggling over these coins. Let him have those coins. You know, he can have them.
It's he's been making a point that they're lousy shepherds, just like Ezekiel said.
Yeah.
They in fact have not been rendering to God the people to God. They've
Yes.
been mistreating them as leaders.
Yeah, and look at how it connects with the parable he just told, right? Remember the whole problem with those tenants? They weren't giving to the owner the things that belong to the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he was coming to collect the fruit and they refused to give it to him. They were not faithful in their duties to him. And so you're all like, so he turns the question back again on them. You are not rendering the things that are God's to him.
Now, what are tenants? They're running the place for him?
The tenants are, in this case, yeah, an owner of a vineyard will oftentimes, he owns the vineyard, he can't be there all the time, and he goes off and he sublets it, so he allows them to, he has them work it, and they get to keep a portion for themselves. They're not slaves, but they don't own it. It's kind of like the manager of a McDonald's. He's just the manager.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't own it. And so, but while he's there, he runs the place as if he does own it, but it's not his. And these guys, and that's what happened. He entrusted God's people to them to care for them, to nurture his people, and to bring them as an offering. They're the fruit that he's looking for, a people that are cared for and maturing and growing in love and all the fruit of the Spirit. And they were abusing them and using them for their own selfish things. And the irony again is they are behaving in a sense like Caesar does with the Romans. Caesar has no love for the Romans. He
Mm-hmm.
lives in decadence and he uses them and abuses them for his own purposes. And these leaders are doing the same thing with God's people. They're not rendering to God what are the things of God. So he kind of, even it began with their offense at that parable, and he brings them back again to that parable, applies it one more time to them. You're not rendering the things of God that are his. These are his people, and you belong to God too. You're not even rendering yourself to him. So it kind of, they seek to get him in trouble, and he just it's like a judo move. He just kind of uses their own trick against them and throws them over so that they're back on their backs again. And all the people marvel at this, at the answer that he gives, and they're silenced by it. So it's interesting. He kind of keeps, the conclusion really is, I would say this. These leaders remain in the spotlight of God's judgment. They can't. They're trying to get him, pulling him into the judgment spotlight where he'll be held on trial, and he just flips the script on them, and they're the ones again standing in trial, exposed before the people, exposed before God. And that's consistent, but his teaching is, I mean, this is why we pay taxes. You know, we respect, we honor our government authorities, and so we know that this money is our government's money. We owe it to them, and so we give it to them. But the things that are God's are not for them; it's for God. So, all right. Any last comments before we move on to the next one?
It's interesting what their reaction is. It says they became silent.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I like the image of them being on their back like a beetle, you know. They can't
Yeah.
get up. They're shocked.
Yes. That's a great catch there, Rob. That their silence is like that's what the law does to us, isn't it? It shuts our mouth so we have nothing to say. Exposes us. Fully exposed again for the corruption. All right, so they go for another route here. Let's pick it up verses 27 to 32. So the first question you'll notice is a question that is designed to get Jesus in trouble with the Pharisees, with the law, the scribes, and the conservative ones who are faithful to the law, and they're addressing an issue that they really care about. Now they're going to address a question that's going to deal with the other side, which are the Sadducees, 27 to 32. Bob Thomas, you want to get that for us?
Sure. There came to him some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection. And they asked him a question, saying, Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife but no children, the man must take a widow and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there are 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died without children, and the second and the third took her, and likewise all 7 left no children and died. Afterward the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had her as a wife.
Okay. All right. Now the Sadducees come. Let's talk about the Sadducees. What are we told about them?
They don't believe in the resurrection.
Okay. They don't believe in the resurrection. They do, as far as I understand, they reject much of the Old Testament, but they do hold to the Torah, the books of Moses.
Yeah.
And since Moses doesn't really mention a resurrection, they don't necessarily hold to it. You see a resurrection mentioned in, like, Daniel mentions a resurrection of the body, but there's no real specific teaching on the resurrection of the body in the books of the law.
So I would have to look into a little more, but what's their view of eternal life? I mean, are you just a spirit being?
I think so. I think it's more like the Sadducees were much more influenced by the Greeks
Yeah. Okay.
culture, and the Greeks believed in an afterlife. They weren't like materialists where it's just like this is just the end of it. But the Greeks believed that the body was the prison of the soul, and so your spirit is set free from your body, and you go off into that regard. I don't know specifically all their teachings, but I do believe that they were much more influenced by Greek philosophy. And the Greeks did have an understanding of some kind of life after this life, but it was not physical.
Right.
It would have been spiritual. So I think that's kind of what their position is. So we know for a fact they rejected the resurrection of the body. I don't know that they were rejected in afterlife, though. But in any case, they ask a question, and the question is designed, in a sense, to make Christ look foolish, if you will. It's kind of a silly question, but it's one that is to try to. It's almost like you ask a question to humiliate your opponent as they try to explain it, they just kind of look silly. So they think this is a great question for them here. They set up the dilemma. What's the situation? So first they say, according to Moses.
So, you're supposed to, if the guy that gets married doesn't have any kids and then he dies, then the brother is supposed to marry her.
Yes. So if a man dies with no children, his brother is supposed to marry his wife, his widow, right? And have children
Yes.
to preserve his line. That was very important for the Jews, and the promised people, the chosen people, that they preserve their lines. And so if a man's line is about to die out, his brother is to step in and to provide children for that line, so that his line can continue. For some men, that was a real problem, because if you remember the sin of Onan in the, if you remember, what's it, Judah's 3 sons, and they married Tamar, and the oldest married Tamar, and he died, and then the next guy went in to fulfill his duty, but he pulled out to intentionally not have children, and the Lord killed him. And he didn't want to have children with her because, and same thing with Ruth. If you remember, she was rejected by some guy because he didn't want to have to raise children for another line. He has his own line to protect, so he doesn't want to have to deal with that. But he's to marry his widow. Now the dilemma is what? What's the dilemma that they sets up?
Because there are 7 men and they all die and then she dies.
A woman who has 7 husbands with no children by any, right? That's important.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the resurrection, who will be your husband?
And they never addressed the fact that maybe she was barren.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine. If she's barren, it's like, but the question is, there's like, well, in the resurrection, then, who's going to get her of these 7 guys? And by the way, I don't know if I told you that before, but there was a movie I went to see called Eternity. It was you can see it on, I think it's on Amazon now, but it was one of those Monday mystery movies. So you go on Mondays to the Regal Cinemas and you don't know what they're going to show. And it's an upcoming movie. And it was about there's an old couple, and they live their life together. They're kind of a cranky old couple. And the whole thing is that they go to this party, and the wife is dying of cancer, but then the man chokes on something and he dies, and goes to now the afterlife, this sort of train station where they're, trying to determine their eternity of which way they'll go. And he says, "Well, let me wait for my wife. She'll be here soon. She's dying of cancer. She'll be here soon." So he decides to wait for her. But while he's waiting there, it turns out he finds out that her first husband, who was this really handsome soldier who died in Korea, has also been waiting there for her for 60 years now, right? And so now that the question is, who's she going to go and spend eternity with, right? And so it's that dilemma. And so she's, is she going to spend it with her first husband, who was this romantic, handsome, really an exciting time with him? Or is she going to spend it with her kind of boring husband whom she raised a family with? And so they have this dilemma. So it's really not about eternity. It's about, where do you find your deepest happiness and satisfaction in life? And it kind of gets into it. It's actually a pretty good movie. It was interesting. But it's kind of, this is the dilemma. It's like, who is she going to spend eternity with? It's a little complicated now. Every one of them has had her, has slept with her, has been joined together in marriage with her. And now, who's she going to be with? Right? How's that going to work? And I'm sure it's a question that they have asked before, and have probably pondered, like, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? So let's see how Jesus responds to her. Now, again, if Jesus gives an answer of like, well, the first one, they drag him into this stupid debate, if you will, and it's a mockery. It's a mockery. This one is not designed to get him in trouble as much as it is to get him to look foolish, and kind of the pigs trying to come wrestle with us in the mud, please. And so let's see what he does. Let's put it up there. Rob Roy, you want to get that answer from Jesus here, 34 to 40?
Yep. And Jesus said to them, the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they cannot die anymore, because they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed in the passage about the bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is not God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. Then some of the scribes answered, Teacher, you have spoken well, for they no longer dared to ask him any questions.
Yeah, we've seen him answer this question in the other Gospels. Luke gives a much more detailed answer to it this time here. So let's talk about what Luke, how Jesus says in this Gospel. So regarding marriage, what does he tell us about marriage?
It's an earthly thing.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. So marriage is for this age. All right, so let's start with that premise here. Marriage is for this age. Why? Why is marriage for this age and not for the age to come?
Well, is it talking about procreation?
Because they can't die anymore.
Yes, because why for this age? Number one is because of death. And so why is marriage necessary in this age?
Okay.
Marriage is for one of the primary purposes of marriage.
Procreation.
Yeah, is for procreation, right? If there is no marriage, if we have no sexual union in marriage, we don't have any more children, and we die out. Which is why the angels, if you remember, it was a sin for those angels, fallen angels, to seek to have children. Back in Genesis, it's not for the angels because there is no
They're
death
eternal.
for them. Yeah, they're eternal in that regard. So for this age, since we're passing by some marriages for this age, for the procreation in this age, they can that phrase, they cannot die anymore. In the age to come, there's other reasons for marriage. What are some other reasons for marriage in this life? Let's talk about that.
Unity.
Marriage it's a union, right?
To support each other for raising the kids.
Yeah. We have a phrase we use sometimes, is for comfort in this life. There is a comfort in this, as you know. It's not good for the man to be alone. As a union, and notice that the union, according to Ephesians 5, what does say is the mystery of marriage? That the two become one flesh, and he says, and I am talking about what?
Christ and the church.
Yeah. That it's a union that points to the union of Christ and the church. That's the real marriage. So it's a symbol of something much greater. It's for comfort in this life, because this life is full of troubles. And marriage is a comfort in it. It's in that time, especially, it was like the happiest time was a wedding. That was their happiest occasion. And like in Fiddler on the Roof, if you remember, it was always the weddings. That was the one time they're celebrating. Everything else is miserable. And they get a wedding. Hey, all right, now we can celebrate. And so this life is full of sin and death. But in the age to come, what does he tell us about the age to come? He says, why no longer given in marriage.
There is
So they
no death.
cannot die anymore.
Yes, cannot die anymore. And what else does he say?
The dead are raised.
He says a few things. He says three things about them after they cannot die anymore.
They're like angels,
They're equal to angels,
the sons of God,
sons of God,
and sons of the resurrection.
sons of the resurrection.
Spelled God, they're wrong.
Wow. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sons of God, sons of the resurrection. They're equal to the angels. This whole idea, those who are, and he describes them as those who are considered worthy. I should say that. Not everyone, those considered worthy, which are what makes us worthy of this.
Having a relationship with Christ.
Yeah. We're saved by grace through faith, by faith in Christ. True faith in Christ, that in that we're brought into this, we're raised from the dead. The whole thing of this, he describes this age to come as a kind of existence that is not a continuation of this life. It's a totally new kind of existence we have here. Paul compares the resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15 as a seed, that this body is like a seed sown into the ground, and it dies. And then it's resurrected, but when it's resurrected, it's not resurrected as a seed. It doesn't come back as even a bigger seed. But what does it come back as? When the
A
seed,
plant.
a plant, a tree, something great, something completely different, something so much more glorious and marvelous than anything we could have even imagined. You take that acorn, you could not imagine, if unless you'd been seen it before, you would never in a million years guess that if I put that in the ground and it died, that it would come back as a 100-foot oak tree,
That's
covered with
amazing.
acorns. It's incredible, right? And that, he says, is what the resurrection is like. This body that we're in right now is like a seed, and some seeds look really shiny and nice. Others look, decaying and a mess.
That
Seeds are seeds.
makes the chaff more understandable.
How
How
so?
how
Yeah,
how the chaff like just blows away in the wind.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know. I'm sorry, Michael and everybody. My phone's about to die.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you
Love
later.
you guys.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
there's this in the resurrection, our existence now is of another level that we can't even imagine. We can't even comprehend what it will be. We're just told that it will be like the glory of the angels, the sons of God, which are heavenly authorities, sons of the resurrection. It's of a completely different spectrum here, so that marriage is is not even necessary. There's nothing in there that marriage brings to the table, to this new experience that we're having here. I remember, I think it was C.S. Lewis who described it this way. He said, when you're a child, when you're a little child, you can't think of anything more wonderful than like candy, just candy and just sweetness, right? And these candies, and you're obsessing about these things, and at the same time, as a young boy, you look at girls and they're like gross. Girls are gross, disgusting, and if I were to tell you that one day you're not gonna love candy that much, and you're gonna love girls instead. You're gonna, as much time as you're thinking about candy, you're gonna be thinking double that about girls. And like, no way, no, no, no way. I can't. They can't even fathom that there is this. Something that looks so disgusting to them right now would be their greatest obsession in a few years. They can't fathom that. It's because, in a sense, when they go through puberty, it's almost like a resurrection. They're becoming a new creature here, a new kind of person with completely different desires. And it's like that here. It's like when we get to the heavenly realms, the things that we obsess about here and think that we desperately need and are just what life is all about are not going to mean anything in that new resurrection time. Yeah.
I have just a comical side thought. Years ago, a friend and I were looking through a magazine and looking in the lingerie section, and her daughter, who was 16 at the time, said, "Why will you get all dressed up like that just to go to bed?" I
Yeah.
said, I said, when you're 26, you won't have to be asking that question.
Yes.
That is so.
So funny.
It,
It really is. It's such a different world.
it is, yes.
So in the resurrection, I really like Luke's description of this conversation because it gets such detail. Not simply that, we'll be like the angels, and we're neither given in marriage or married, but rather he goes further. We're equal to the angels, sons of God, sons of the resurrection. Really beautiful. But he does make a case from the law of Moses, though. He could appeal to Daniel because Daniel talks about a resurrection. But he doesn't. He sticks with, no, Moses does teach the resurrection. And how does he do it? How does Moses teach the resurrection?
Saying that he's the God of the living. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're not with you anymore, but they are clearly, he's not a God of dead people.
Yeah. He goes back to a specific event. What was the event? What was the moment?
The burning bush.
At the burning bush, the Lord reveals himself, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who at this point are all dead. And how long have they been dead?
A long time.
For, I think, at least 400 years, right? Probably 500 years or so. But at least 400 years. Yet he still maintains that I am their God. I'm the God of these people. That's one thing that's interesting in the before that time. I think if he is referred to as like the God of Shem.
Yeah.
And they have other different times where he's referred to as the God of someone, and that someone is always alive. And now to Moses, he says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob, as if they were all alive. And that's his point. He's not the God of the dead. He's the God of the living. The Lord is the God of the living. Therefore, all live to him. I wonder, anybody have notes on that? What that means? All live to him.
What verse is that? It's
verse 38. He's not God of the dead, but of the living.
It says, Jesus implies that when God appeared to Moses centuries after the death of the patriarchs, he still sustained a faithful and vital relationship with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God's covenant commitment to his people means that the physical death cannot ultimately overcome and eliminate them. Rather, death will be reversed in the end, the God who gives life.
Okay. All right. Not God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. All right. Again, just pointing out from the way that God deals with Moses and his people. He's made a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and a covenant he's going to keep to them. And that's another point too. I think as a covenant with them, covenants end when a party dies.
Right.
And so that there is this, that they are in some sense alive or are going to be resurrected, if not already.
That's a good point. Because they're counting on that covenant continuing.
Yeah. But yeah, so they know, and so they no longer, again, it ends the same way as the last one did. They're silenced. no one dared ask him any further questions. So, great. All right, any comments or questions about that last question here? So now let's see, are they finished with him yet? Okay, well, Jesus has one more now we're going to move to. We got a few moments left. Let's see if we can get into this here. Bob Fowler, you want to get this one for us? 41 to 44.
But he said to them, how can they say that the Christ is David's son? For David himself says in the book of Psalms, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. David thus calls him Lord, so how is he his son?
Okay. So now Jesus' question for them. And what is the question?
How is it that they say that Christ is David's son?
How can they say that the Christ is David's son? Now, let's talk about that, what that means. When they say that the Christ is David's son, what are they saying?
He's in David's line.
Okay, that he is, so the Christ is that's true, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Is of David's line, but also there's one more thing. In a genealogy, who is the greater, the father or the son?
Father.
Father's greater. So for him to be the son of David would make David would be greater than his son. That's how it goes in genealogies. It's like by rule of respect. It's my son who shows me respect as his father. In that sense, he will always look up to me, even in my old age. He will always show me that respect. I'm his father, as I did with my father before me. And so, yes, we're equal as far as human beings, but by roles, he comes from me. I'm first. Therefore, when they say that it's David's son, they see David as sort of the one who is the greater, and that he will be like David. The Christ would be like David, if you will, to be his son. So in one sense, by saying he's David's son, it's a diminishing of his glory. And so that's why he counters it by saying, well, if that's the case, what does David actually say? What does David say about the Christ?
David calls him Lord.
Right.
Yeah. He calls him Lord. Yeah. And sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord said to my Lord. And so how can he call him his son if he also calls him Lord? It's kind of like what's that song? I'm my own grandpa kind of thing. How can he be both his son and his Lord? It doesn't work that way. And this kind of is a great question because it kind of captures the dual nature of Christ, fully man and fully God. In his human nature, he is indeed the son of David, but in his divine nature, he's the Lord of David. So which is really fascinating. So right here, and this is the Christ is the Lord and the Son of David, which is amazing.
And David acknowledged it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why the Son. It's interesting in the Jewish, according to some Jewish theologians before Christianity came, there was one theory that was gaining some steam of the two powers in the Old Testament, that there seem to be not one but two divine figures in the Old Testament. The Lord says to my Lord is one passage you're looking at, and this Lord who is clearly distinguished from the first Lord, who's sitting at the right hand of the first Lord, is someone of extremely high position. Or the Son of Man in the Ancient of Days in the book of Daniel, again, a divine figure who is distinct from the Ancient of Days. Or there's another psalm that talks about how God, your God, where you have God has a God. We have this mysterious thing of these seems to be two powers at work here, two divine powers in the Old Testament. Jesus kind of brings it out here for them and sort of stumps them. And I think it's important to get that they're exposing their expectations. They're expecting someone like a David to come in the military way and to recapture the land to set up the king of Israel. But if we go back to that parable again, you'll remember that Jesus describes himself as the stone that they rejected, who was the son, the beloved son of the owner of the vineyard. And so he is not, at his truest nature, he is the beloved son of God, who then later on allows himself to become the son of David, if you will. So I think we'll stop it right there. So any questions? And I love this question too, because it's, I don't think they have an answer for him.
Right.
And it kind of, what they were trying to do to him to make him look stupid, he turns back on them and makes them look foolish because they can't explain clear text. So, all right. Any last questions?
I have a question. Going back to where a brother would marry the widow of his brother, so he would raise children on behalf of his brother. I would imagine that all 7 brothers had the same last name. So
Yeah.
the family line would continue. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Specifically, and they would bear a child. Even the thing is, even if those men, I think if those men were even married,
Uh-huh.
they would do that for their
Okay.
brother, so that this widow would not be lost in a sense, that she would have a line continuing for her dead husband.
Uh,
Well,
Um,
wasn't it also a thing at that time that a woman couldn't own land or anything? So if she didn't have a son,
yeah,
then she would lose everything.
yeah, yeah. It was really important that this maintaining the family line. It was of high priority for them. Um, yeah, it's really, there's an urgency to it. Again, it's specific to Israel. It's not a law given to all of humanity. It's specific to this nation
mm,
because salvation must come through the Jews. That's why in Jacob's time, when he's got the 2 wives and the 2 concubines, and he has 12 kids by them, and it looks
uh-huh.
craziness. It looks really perverse to us, but
Yes.
it's not driven by perversity. It's driven by a fervent desire for children, is what they want. They're not sleeping with Jacob for a good time. They're doing this because they desperately want children. They know that this is, in a sense, the whole world is counting on them to be fruitful and multiply and have many kids. And so they end up doing, things that are offensive to us, like Sarah giving Hagar to her husband
Mm,
to have children by her. But you got to understand, it's like their number one priority was having children.
mm,
It's not about, Abraham, having his sexual fantasies fulfilled with a younger woman. It's not that at all. It's about, we got to have kids, because if we don't, we will be wiped off the face of the earth. We will be lost.
mm,
So it's a different time and
right.
different place. So, all right.
Uh,
Well, let's pause it here. Okay.